everybody. Welcome to She Births Show TV. I am here today with the amazing Sam, who is a co-founder of the Pink Elephant Support Network. Welcome, Sam.
Hi, thanks for having us.
You're so welcome. I just love your banner. It is so beautiful and glossy. I want one.
I love it. It hides a mess. It's brilliant.
Hides a mess, exactly. Sam is a mum. She understands mess. And today we're going to talk about something really important that I know a huge amount of us have gone through, and that is the journey of loss in our pregnancy. At whatever stage that happens, Sam is our expert, and the Pink Elephant Support Group is there for us and many other families around Australia and globally too.
Yeah, we have quite a lot of traffic come from the US, UK, Africa. So yeah, seems there's not much support in those areas either.
No, there isn't. So I thought we'd just jump on in and just tell us, like, what do you do and how do you do it?
So we formed only 3.5 years ago, and we've had incredible growth in those 3.5 years, and we believe that's down to this being such a needed service and an unmet need before. So what we do is we provide emotional support when a woman's going through an early pregnancy loss or as an associated fertility struggle. And the way that we provide that support is by offering meaningful connections to other women who've also been through a similar journey, who can offer you that empathy and understanding through lived experience. So we facilitate online communities, and we have a personalised peer support programme. And then in addition to that, we've got one central reliable point of information on all things to do with miscarriage and pregnancy loss, which is our website, and that also houses all of our emotional support literature, so all of our resources, and they're written to you from women who've got lived experience of loss again. So it's that extra connection, empathy and understanding that can only come from that perspective. And in addition to that, they're also written to friends and colleagues and your partner on how to support you through the journey of early pregnancy loss as well.
Oh, fantastic. And congratulations on winning the Telstra Women in Business Award just a few months ago. Yeah. And in April, when you won that award, I think you'd already touched, I suppose, 10,000 families through your downloads. Is that right?
Yeah, so we'd reached up to that point, about 3 years we'd been around, and we'd had over 10,000 downloads of our emotional support literature, which is the resources. So incredible, again, highlighting the need and the want for the service that we provide. Yeah.
It's amazing. And is it top secret? But we're going to let it go. You're going down to Parliament tomorrow?
I love it. You've just shared it nationally.
Let it out. You know, advocacy work is so important in women's health, and we have to promote it, right?
It is, right. So we've been in conversations with Minister Hunt's office over the last year in regards to the service that we provide and the gap that we're filling within the healthcare system. So we support over 75% of New South Wales and ACT hospitals. We're also moving into Victoria and Queensland, and we supply a few in WA as well. So we've got huge plans for growth to ensure that we're a clear referral pathway for healthcare professionals to refer women for support to us. But that can't be achieved alone, and we're now at a point 3.5 years in where we've had incredible impact. We have made such a difference in over 15,000 couples going through this journey, so we now need support from obviously the healthcare system to help us and to enable us to grow and make a difference.
Amazing. So good. Well, I think you better start campaigns. Once you get that ball rolling, start campaigns so everyone can kind of come in and show their support as well. So to give people an overview who are tuning in now, I think it's important that we kind of get an overview of how many people this affects and how it affects us. And then what can we do to support friends and family who've gone through loss. And then what can we do to heal? Because it's really common that an experience of grief in our culture, in our society, gets kind of shunned, moved aside. Even in ourselves, like I've had miscarriages, and for me, I don't even know fully if I processed it, but there was this kind of like, well, get up and on with it. Yeah. And, just keep going kind of attitude. And I'm not sure that was the best. I didn't have to go through pregnancy after. It was after my full term with Leroy. But, yeah, I'm not even sure. I'm sure I would have to face a few demons and some pain to process. Anyway, and nobody really likes to do that. But, you know, this whole perinatal period, including the birth, is a kind of like, I don't know, the sort of like moment of explosion or reaching and attaining is the hero's journey.
Yeah,
so yeah, we're all heroes on this journey together, right?
Impacted, and it's all relative to what you're going through at the time and the impact on yourself. We shared a beautiful post on social media that resonated really well, and it was about, if you've got a friend who's going through a fertility struggle or an early pregnancy loss, that what we need is for you to sit with us in the darkness. I don't need you to fix this problem for me. I don't need you to show me the path or to find light in, or to push things forward and it will all be okay and offer platitudes, because right now I'm grieving the loss of my child and a future that I'd imagined, and it's about sitting with us, acknowledging our loss and validating that it matters. So it can be as simple as, I'm really sorry for your loss and I'm here for you. But yeah, there's 3 key words that we always refer to, and validation, empathy, and connection. So validate that the woman's loss matters and that you're there with them through that. Empathize. I know this is really shitty. I know this is awful. I can't imagine how you're feeling. I haven't been through it, but I'm here for you. And then refer, make sure that you are referring to a support organisation such as ours, who can meet the needs of women who are going through early pregnancy loss, which is often a disenfranchised style of grief, because it isn't a later term loss and there isn't the whole burial process and an actual physical baby. It can often leave women feeling invalidated in their own grief and feeling like they can't reach out for support, when all of the studies actually highlight that the impact, the mental health impact on a woman who's lost a pregnancy at any stage is exactly the same. It can induce anxiety. It's an intense emotional distress, period of trauma. And that if we don't process all of these emotions and we don't allow ourselves to feel these emotions, it's really difficult to heal and to move forward. And it can present much later on. So 33% of women who experience an early pregnancy loss will end up with a clinical diagnosis of anxiety or depression. And that's huge numbers. So that's a third of the women. And if you think about this as a problem, so within Australia, there's 103,000 couples a year. So that's around 300 women a day who will hear the words, I'm sorry, there's no heartbeat, or this pregnancy is not viable. And they're losing everything that they've imagined, and I can't describe it to you. It's kind of like there's a trap door and it opens up and you just fall, and there's no, prior to us, there hasn't been anyone there to catch them. And I think that's also why we've had resonated globally as well. I mean, if you look at this as a global problem, there's around 4 million couples a year who report an early pregnancy loss. So we suspect that number's actually higher, which is dumbfounding when you think about it, but it's in the millions. If 1 in 4 pregnancies end in loss before 12 weeks, you can do that from the live birth rates. So yeah, it's a huge problem, but really it's all about validating, empathizing, and offering a connection to another woman who's been through this journey as well. Absolutely.
So I think you were saying statistics wise, I mean, the numbers are huge, but overall in Australia, that would mean that 1 in 3 of us as women are walking around and we have experienced loss.
Absolutely. So 1 in 3 women in Australia will be touched by an early pregnancy loss.
Yeah.
And you think about that, you hear some statistics around endometriosis being 1 in 10 women are impacted by that. And that's seen as a huge problem, yet that's having some great funds put behind it now, lots of research and lots of support, and rightly so. But this problem's bigger. It's 1 in 3 women. It's huge. So chances are, if you've not been impacted by yourself, then definitely someone within your immediate circle of friends or family has been. And just because they haven't spoken about it doesn't mean that they haven't, because they've potentially not had the words to speak about it. There's also far too long been this whole 12-week rule in society, and we advocate that women, you know, it's not about shouting it out on social media and saying I'm pregnant from 5 weeks. That's not what we say. But if you can bring in your circle of support, your close family and friends, and let you know that you are pregnant from an early place, then what can happen is then you can have that support if things don't go right. If you're not sharing anyone that you're pregnant because of this out of date 12-week rule, then unfortunately then it becomes an even harder conversation. What we hear from women is, how do I tell people I was pregnant but I'm not pregnant anymore? And it's just, yeah, it's devastating, really.
Yeah, it is. Well, let's backtrack just a bit, because you're an amazing speaker and there's like so much content I think that's coming across to people. why not tell people why you called it the pink elephants? Because I really love this story.
So when we were researching, Gabby and I, in terms of setting up the charity, we were unsure on names and what to be, and we knew that we want to create a brand that had meaning behind it and that can present you with a virtual hug when you need it most. And so we researched stories around loss, and we found that within the elephant community, when a mother elephant loses her baby, the other elephants form a circle of support around her, and they each place their trunk on her, and it's this silent, unwavering, I know it makes me, I still get goosebumps now, and it just, that in the animal world is symbolic of what we're creating. We're all about a circle of support, and we try and reach women in as many ways as possible, whether that's by reaching your healthcare professionals to ensure that we're a clear referral pathway, or whether it's social media, or whether it's our PR campaigns for awareness, or whether it's working with workplaces to ensure that you've got the support that you need. It all comes back to that circle of support, and that if the elephant community can do it, then surely we can, as human beings. We can support each other through what is, it's bereavement, it's real grief.
Yeah.
It's huge.
Ceremony. I've been a celebrant for many years, and I've of course worked as a doula, and a lot of my work as a doula is it can be quite spiritual and have ritual in it. But in a blessing way, we will often, in blessing a woman on her way to birthing and becoming a mother, we will, as women, put our hands on that woman and give her that strength and that support to carry forward. And I just think, I was actually approached the other day by someone whose friend has just had recurrent miscarriages, and she's not interested in spirituality or religion or anything like that, but she wanted some kind of ritual. And I just thought that would be an interesting one, because that circle of support. And I remember after my miscarriage, it's sort of, I was kind of in a haze, and all of a sudden, like, my house was just filled with women.
Yeah.
Women and children. And it was just this gift. People were cooking for me and cleaning and brushing my hair. And yeah, but I think a ceremony, I can just see, like, a ceremony would just be so beautiful to have if you just had like a few of your closest friends around you, and there was some poetry and some hands laid on the mum to give her that strength and support, and just sitting and acknowledging.
Absolutely. So we talk about that as well. We've discussed rituals, and that it's really important that if you feel strong enough to, and it's something that you think will benefit you, then to mark a loss. And women do it in so many different ways. We have tattoos. Women share tattoos that they have just to mark their baby was there and there was a presence, and that's it's a memory that they've created permanently, and they're beautiful. And then we have ceremonies similar to how you've discussed, where they bring loved ones in. They might write a letter to the baby, and they might bury something symbolic. Other women gift plants to women who've gone through loss, that you can nurture the plant whilst you're healing and grieving as well. And we think that is a really important process, and it's not one that, again, has been talked about very much, because in society we're not very good at dealing with grief, especially we're in Western society. It's kind of, oh, that happened last week, are you ready to go forward now? And we think that by marking a loss and offering some kind of ceremony or some ritual, again, it validates the impact.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So I suppose, what else would you want people to know about loss? Like, loss isn't just under 12 weeks, it can be after. And I think it's interesting in reading some of your work, and it's so obvious, but it needs to be spoken, that sometimes a loss under 12 weeks can be as grief-filled as losing a full-term baby. And we just can't kind of quantify what someone should be feeling. And I think that's where our culture kind of falls down as well. We love numbers, and we love to like mark times and periods out and all that kind of stuff. But what are some of the experiences that women have from loss? Like, what, as well as grief, like, what are some of the other thoughts, beliefs, ideas and feelings that women will have?
Yeah, and it's really sad, but one of the most common ones is self-blame.
Yep.
And
I've seen that a lot.
Yeah, because, I mean, our ambassador, Tahini McManus, described it beautifully in one of our videos recently, in that we've all got this whole perception of huggies and having babies, and it's this beautiful, and like there's a baby with a cute little bum, and then and that's how, and becoming a mum is such a woman's thing, and you just get this beautiful bump and then you have a baby, and that's the story we're all sold. And then the reality speaks back to what you spoke of earlier in terms of we all have a challenge along this fertility perinatal wellness space, because whether it is pregnancy loss, or whether it's a traumatic birth, or whether it is a postnatal depression or psychosis, there's this whole period when a woman's really vulnerable, and we all need to be there to support her through those challenges, whatever those challenges are. But yeah, I think the common thread that comes through a lot with early pregnancy loss is self-blame. What did I do? Was it that one glass of wine that I had? Was it the cheese that I ate? Or did I exercise too much? And you need to know, and it's really important, that there is nothing you can do that can cause you to have a miscarriage. Nothing. It is not your fault. And that is also something really important, that if you have a loved one going through this, please have that conversation with them, because it's something that they need to hear several times. Internalize a lot of this grief. So that's probably one of the most common threads that we see.
Yeah, and I think when we go into self-blame, we often keep that, it sort of chugs along in the back of our minds, and that turns in, and then it becomes, in my experience when I'm helping people prepare for birth, those feelings are actually very deep and very dark. And to kind of pull them out from the roots is quite a hard process.
And if you don't process them whilst you're going through them, then they present later. And then that was my case, that I did go on after my second loss, and I had Johnny, who's now 2.5 and crazy, chaotic little boy, and I'm extremely very lucky. But I went through 4 months of hell when I had him, and I ended up with postpartum anxiety, and I've got no prior symptoms of anxiety or depression. It isn't something that I'd suffered with prior, but I basically went through all of my losses and was so focused on just having a baby or a sibling for my older daughter that I didn't process or deal with anything that was happening to me at the time. And then the way that it presented or manifested with me was that 4 months after Johnny was born, I was a complete mess. I had horrible thoughts that he was going to die at any second. I wouldn't let people touch him, couldn't do he was mine, and stay away. And it was awful, and what was going around in my head, and it was all come from this place of self-blame, that I wasn't a good mother, so that's why I lost the babies, and that it was my fault, and that all of this, that you're meant to protect a baby, you're meant to be able to carry a baby, a healthy pregnancy. What did I do that wasn't right? And when I worked that through with a counsellor later on, you could directly see it, where it had all come from. And it was, it's hideous. And it is that case of, if we get better as a community of supporting women and letting them be in those feelings and accepting them, but then also helping them move forward, then we can hopefully try and prevent some of that in the future. Yeah,
totally. That would be a very, very good thing to do. Yeah. And it would pave the way, like you say, stopping it from coming up later would just pave the way for a more enjoyable pregnancy. And we know that women who have experienced more complications, any trauma throughout their conception periods, that can lead into a more complicated birth and delivery. So of course it continues to reiterate until we find those people that can help us unravel.
Yeah, and we see that. So we've got a pregnancy after loss support group, and that again is an uncommon thread in that group, is the anxiety, that they want to be excited and joyful about their current pregnancy, but they've also had the naivety of pregnancy robbed from them because they've gone through such a journey to get to the point where they are. There's a sense of disbelief in that this pregnancy won't automatically end with a healthy baby. And so there's this whole disassociation, which a lot of women do, where they might don't believe, and almost like not believing you're pregnant and try and not process it, and then all of a sudden you are, and you're very heavily pregnant and you're having a baby and things have moved. You've not had those 9 months to process that because you've been living in this place of fear and anxiety. And again, it's really important that if there is a woman who's pregnant again after loss, that she's kept an extra special close checkup on, just to ensure that she isn't struggling, and that if we can connect her to another woman who can validate that, actually, yeah, I feel that way too, and that's okay. It's okay to have this anxiety, and we understand where that comes from. It's about trying to work out when it escalates and when really they should be seeing their GP for a mental health care plan, or seeking support from a counsellor. And there's some other excellent services out there. So COPE, Centre for Perinatal Excellence, the Gidget Foundation, they offer brilliant support to women who are at heightened risk of anxiety or depression in the perinatal space.
Amazing. I love the video that you guys had on Facebook, and it showed one dad.
Yeah.
And oh my God, it was just so important. And I believe it's really important. I talk a lot about it when we're preparing for birth, that partners need to have the space given to them and the permission given for them to explore what they're feeling and their fears in the lead up to the birth and all of that and parenthood. But what is experienced by partners, you think, through pregnancy loss?
It's almost the same. So
wow.
Them not having the hormones and the actual physical, like miscarriage or pregnancy loss, depending on type of loss. And obviously, so the hormones affect women as well, and that's an important point to understand, that there's a huge drop in estrogen and progesterone, just similar to as there is after full-term birth. And again, that's where a lot of these emotions can present as well. But there's research conducted again by the University of Melbourne. They ran a focus group with 10 men. And the outcomes from that were that men also grieve. Men also want to be connected with other men who are going through a similar circumstance to them. And that's a service that we urgently want to provide, but we need significant funding to be able to scale it out to support partners too. We do offer a partner resource on our website. And what that resource is, it's more geared on how you can support your loved one through the process of loss and what to expect. Because again, if you haven't been touched by this or no one in your circle has talked about pregnancy loss, and then all of a sudden your wife or your partner has just lost their baby to it, you actually don't know what to expect. So not only are you dealing with your own grief because you also imagined a future with this baby, men are put into this position of having to support or to be the hero or the white knight, and that's not always the case. Like, my husband was absolutely amazing, but he also did keep trying to fix me, and I wasn't ready to be fixed. I didn't want to be fixed. I wanted to sit, and I didn't want to wallow in the fact that I just lost a baby, and I wasn't ready to move on a week later. So it's about explaining the process as well to partners so that they have a better understanding and are better equipped to support their partners through this. But yeah, men grieve too. Men very much feel the feelings of loss.
Yeah, they go through the blame and the guilt and all of that kind of stuff as well. It's huge.
And Ben speaks to it in the group, that in the video, that he was really worried that the way that he perhaps they'd had an argument or caused stress on Stacey, and that was one of the reasons they'd had a miscarriage. So that again highlights that he also went through self-blame. Was it, what did I do that caused my wife to have a miscarriage? Again, nothing you do can cause you to have a miscarriage, but it just highlights that men and women grieve too.
Amazing. Well, I suppose, how many women, I mean, this is pretty heavy, pretty heavy conversation. And it's an important conversation. That's why we're having it, to talk about all of these feelings, to give permission to people. But what percentage of people after a loss go on to have a successful pregnancy?
80%.
80%.
A really important statistic to share and to talk about as well. And we need to celebrate what's often framed as a rainbow baby, because they're an incredible message of hope. And that when you're in those depths of despair and you're unsure whether you are going to go on and create a baby, it can be empowering to read other women's journeys who've also been in a similar position but come out on the other side as well. So yeah, we do a lot around celebrating rainbow babies, and we do also acknowledge that not everyone's journey ends up that way, and potentially you can end up with involuntary childlessness, and there are other organisations such as the Dovecote Foundation who support women on that journey too. But the majority, and the huge majority, will go on and have a healthy term pregnancy, and you will have your baby.
Yeah. Amazing. Yeah. And that's when you come to She Births.
Yay! Yeah.
To prepare for a beautiful birth together. And I think so much of what we do and what you do is focused in the same sort of values and philosophy, in support, in that love, in that empathy, and acknowledging the psychosomatic process, the massive transformation. Would you say that even through miscarriage, there's an opportunity to learn about ourselves and to grow, to gain from the process? There's pearls that might be gifted to us through that journey?
I never knew how resilient I was until I went through 2 years of grief, and we lost obviously 2 much wanted pregnancies and babies that we planned for. We also lost my husband's father, and we lost my nephew in a car crash.
God.
We went through, it was awful. And it brings me to tears to think about it now. It was like a consistent loss after loss after loss. And the way that I've grown personally from that is understanding my strength and how resilient I am. I do think we need to be careful that you always want to find a purpose and like shine the light on it again. And whilst you're in that phase, that's not what you need to hear at that point. But with hindsight, yes, I can see how I've grown and I've been given a purpose, and I'm incredibly privileged to be able to be the person who's at the front of this network, who can ensure that no other woman walks the journey of miscarriage and infertility alone. And I will continue to do what I do because I will always remember what it felt like at 3 o'clock in the morning in the shower alone with nowhere to turn to for support whilst I miscarried my baby alone. That's not okay. And there was no connection for me. I managed and I found my connection with Gabby, who co-founded the Pink Elephants with me about a month later from that experience. But no woman should have to do that. So I think that for me, my personal growth has been learning my own strength and my determination to make a difference. And I've got a purpose with what I do now, which is incredible. But yeah, I still don't know whether I'd ever want to go through the loss of my babies again to be where I am now.
Absolutely, absolutely. But I think it is a process, and sometimes in life, we get dealt shitty cards.
Yes, yeah.
And definitely not in that moment do we need someone saying, well, you know, what are the good things that you can see in this? And can you practice gratitude right now? Right. No, we need space to feel our feelings in their authenticity and their truth. But over the years, it is one of those things, I think, as we just trust and have faith. When we look back, we can see that life changed in some way, somehow. And I see that looking back over my birth experiences and my miscarriages. And so I think, but it takes years sometimes. And it's not something, like you say, to go searching for. It just becomes a little insight in a paused moment of reflection or conversation, perhaps.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think there's something in that just allows you to feel like that you're not alone, and that at the same time there will be some insight and some value down the line.
Yeah, no, I agree with that completely. Rose, you can and you do heal, but again, when you're in it, you don't want to hear that with time you'll feel better, because that's a platitude. And it's not right now and then, that's not how I feel. But yeah, it is a truth. I think with loss, you will forever be a changed person. I won't ever be the same again. Whether that's a good thing, you can see the good in it, but I can also see the other side of it where I'd love to be the person who I was before all of this in a way. The naivety was beautiful, but in hindsight, you can't, it's a difficult one to almost articulate as well.
It is. No, I agree. I mean, I would love to have 3 children. I don't, I have 1.
Yeah.
And that's the reality. And sometimes that's life, and that's good enough.
Yeah, I mean, it's grateful for what I have. Yeah.
Now, one more thing I think that's really exciting, the work that you're doing, is working in workplaces, because so are we at She Births, and a huge percentage of women experience some form of discrimination when they're pregnant. Huge. And pretty much, I think often the experience is when a woman is pregnant, she keeps it silent for the first 12 weeks as best she can. And then she kind of disconnects from her body and just sits there and hopes that she doesn't get noticed when she goes off to vomit, or when she's exhausted because she's growing a human. And then, works until the latest possible time and pretends that it's not even happening at all, which I don't believe is healthy at all in the pregnancy birth preparation journey. But then there's people who are going through fertility issues and losses who I think are even having a shittier time, to put it well, right?
Yeah, exactly that. So we identified around October last year, we looked at workplaces and we were like, okay, so the majority of women that we support are aged 28 to around 48, 50 years old, who are trying to have a family, planning for parenthood. And that majority of women are actually in the workforce as well, as are their partners. And then we started to speak about this in our online communities, where we'd hear little stories come through where women were saying, oh, did you go back to work the same day as your D&C? Did you take a day? What was your
Oh my God.
And then that just opened up this whole catalyst for us to delve deeper, and so alarmed that the majority of women are going back to work a couple of days after an early pregnancy loss. And I think what workplaces don't understand is that you bleed heavily for up to 6 weeks post a loss. So that also is very difficult to manage in a workplace, aside from even touching on the emotional side of things. And that this is a mental health issue. So if I'm struggling at work and I'm not performing at my best and you're not supporting me, and then no one out there is supporting me, I'm just going to continue to not perform at work. I'm not going to be engaged. I'm going to disengage and I'm going to be so focused on what's happening to me. Whereas we believe that with workplace support, if we can, again, offer that validation and that acknowledgement that their loss matters and that the process they're going through is difficult and is shitty, but we can support you as a workplace by doing X, Y, and Z through that. And then we can, again, offer you the empathy that you deserve as a human being, as a person. And we're all talking about workplaces love to use the term, bring your whole self to work. Okay, you want my whole self? This is my whole self right now. This is what I'm going through. So what we're trying to do with our workplace program is really offer that education and awareness, firstly, that this is huge. 1 in 3 women. So think about your workplace now and what that looks like. That generally a lot of women will be going through this issue at your workplace right now. They'll be trying to fall pregnant, potentially using assisted conception, potentially having IVF, which requires appointments. It requires blood tests. It requires medication at set times of day. It requires that medication to be in a fridge. And women are trying to do this juggle, and we hear stories of women putting the medication in the fridge with everybody's lunches. That's not okay. That's just not... can we have some compassion and understanding that can we provide them a separate space for this? Women, again, the discrimination, there is a Sex and Discrimination Act as long back as 1984, so it was the year I was born. It's 35 years old, and yet this is still happening. Women are still they're not confident to have these conversations with HR or with management. Again, we identified that, so what we plan on doing with our workplace program is providing our emotional support literature onto wellbeing platforms, into different types of providers, so that women can access it discreetly and confidentially at work and still be pointed to us for support. So it's in line with our mission of reaching more women. But yeah, we're also hosting panel discussions around bringing this conversation into the workplace and what you can do and how you can support a colleague through this, how you can support a team member through it. And then in addition to that, there's this whole policy piece that Fair Work Australia currently doesn't have a policy in place for early pregnancy loss, despite the fact that 98% of losses occur before 12 weeks. So that's around 100,000 couples a year who go through an early pregnancy loss and have to take sick leave. What we believe they should be able to take is bereavement leave. So we're advocating at the moment for 3 days paid bereavement leave for mother and father.
Amazing.
Grief too. Men deserve space to be with their partner and process what's happened to them. There's a similar bill been put on the table in New Zealand, and that's up for review in October. And we're working our own Leave for Loss campaign at the moment, and hopefully that in place with us supporting workplaces will ensure again that we're just meeting the needs of women in a different area of their life and their partners as well.
Amazing.
A lot.
Oh my goodness, what you guys have done in just the last few years and what you have ahead of you is ginormous. And yeah, it really is, and it's very moving. It's extremely moving. And thank you for all the love and the devotion and the hard work and the hours unpaid that you've put into supporting women and families and spreading the word and paying it forward for future generations. It's phenomenal, Sam. Is there anything else you want to say or share?
No, just that if you are struggling, know that you can come to us. So just literally thinkelephantsupport.com. Come find our resources, join our communities online on Facebook, request peer support. Know that you can join the communities and you don't have to be active and have conversations. It can just be a nice, safe space to be part of when you're going through this journey. But you're not alone, and that we're here for you, as are the hundreds and thousands of women that have been there before us. everyone wants to make a difference in this area, and now we've created a way to make a difference. So,
absolutely. So people should find you online, they should share it with their friends, they should find you on social media and join I assume they have to put in like questions to join the Facebook communities and so on. They have to answer questions.
We've got a Facebook page which is about awareness. So if you haven't been through loss, follow that page, share it with friends. That'll help you to understand how you can support friends through loss. But then the groups are for women who've gone through loss, and they are monitored, and there are questions. So for example, a pregnancy after loss group is only for women who are currently pregnant. We have a preconception group, so if you're trying to conceive again after loss, because we know that's a heightened time of anxiety, there's a group there for you. And then we have the miscarriage support group, which is for women who've just gone through the miscarriage now and need that extra support. And when we say miscarriage as well, I know we use that term a lot, but termination of pregnancy for unfavourable genetic results is another area that's massively overlooked. You're welcome to join that group too, but it's your safe space. You also have experienced an early pregnancy loss, and you deserve the support that your loss matters to, and that validation. So yeah, there's a huge community there for you.
One more thing, I know we want to wrap it up, but it's so interesting. So within that group, you have women who have chosen to have terminations, because at She Births, of course, we are pro-choice. Yeah. And anyone who isn't really a feminist or a modern woman in my world. But I assume there's also other reasons why people choose to have terminations, like partners leaving them or all sorts of things. Are those sorts of women allowed in the group as well?
Be welcome in the group if they feel it's for them. It's the pregnancy outcome that it wasn't what you desired, and you've lost your baby.
Yeah.
You feel like you need emotional support, and then you can come to us and join us for support. Absolutely.
Yeah. Absolutely. Amazing. Well, thank you so much for spending this time with us on the She Birth Show, and thanks for everything that you do. Amazing. You're a legend.
No, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to have a chat and to share. So it's great. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, darling. Have a great day.
Bye.